Commissioner Kelly, can you please confirm that disgraced former Colonel Russell Williams is also at La Casa, which houses Paul Bernardo and Luca Magnotta?
No, I cannot confirm. I cannot confirm that information.
Now, how about Guy Turcotte? Is he also there?
I can also not confirm that information.
Did you confirm that Luca Magnotta was there? Did the CSC eventually confirm that?
Well, that's in the public domain right now.
And how about Paul Bernardo? Did the CSC eventually confirm that they were there?
That's also was in the public domain.
I'm not asking whether it was in the public domain. I'm asking whether the CSC confirmed it for those two offenders, but you're not prepared to confirm it for the other two. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, so we have one set of rules and another set of rules. I'm clear there. Now, Minister, the regulations, as you know, we have the Corrections and Conditional Release Act, and the Corrections and Conditional Release Act talks about the regulations. We're clear, obviously, on that. Now, when it comes to the regulations, the government, the minister, you have control over those regulations, correct?
There's a process through Treasury Board and a regulatory process, but I recognize that it's in the hands of the cabinet, yes.
It is in the hands. So the final say over the regulations is with the government. We can be clear on that, correct?
Again, I'm not an expert on parliamentary procedure. I think there's a committee, a joint scrutiny of regulations committee. Our colleagues in the Senate are very interested in these issues. I think
Minister, let's not get into...
But if you want to have an esoteric discussion on the regulatory process, I'd be happy to have.
No, I'm not having an esoteric discussion. I'm saying when it comes to the regulations, the buck stops with the government, correct?
Again, there's a parliamentary review process that I'm not familiar with. So I get the trap in the question. I'll say yes, and then you'll find an example. So I recognize that regulations are in the hands of the cabinet.
It's no trap. It's actually very clear. The reality is that the government creates the regulations. Then the CSC, Correctional Service of Canada, implements those regulations. Okay? Those regulations allowed for the transfer of Bernardo and Magnotta. Okay? So you have the ability to change those regulations, correct?
The government has a general authority as long as it's within the four corners of the statute to change regulations.
I'm not talking about the authority. In this case, Minister, the government could change the regulations and it hasn't, correct?
Our government has confidence that the regulations are appropriate in giving the correctional service, in their independent and professional judgment, the responsibility of assigning convicted federal offenders, in this case, people convicted of murder, to the appropriate, secure federal penitentiary.
So in this case, you are okay with the likes of Magnotta, Bernardo, and Williams being not only in medium security, but being together at La Casa, correct?
Well, again, for operational security reasons that the commissioner can elaborate, we don't discuss or actually do videos telling Canadians where particular inmates are serving their sentences. It's for the security of the men and women who work in those institutions. So that's an irresponsible course that I don't think we're going to start on. And I share the concern that Canadians have about...
Minister, we're not talking about my conduct. We're talking here about the government and whether you will create regulations. Because those regulations allowed the transfer of Bernardo, they allowed the transfer of Williams, and they allowed the transfer of Magnotta. And you're here telling us, no, CSC is going to do their job. Minister, you have the opportunity to change those regulations right here, right now. Will you commit to do this? Because you've said we don't intervene on specific cases. I'm not asking for you to intervene on a specific case, Minister. I'm asking for you to intervene on a class of offenders. Will you intervene on a class of offenders, an injustice that has happened, and change those regulations right here, right now?
Well, again, if you want to be technical, I actually can't change those regulations right here and right now. I explained to you there's a Treasury Board process with the governor and council. So, no, I can't change those regulations right here and right now, Mr. Chair.
Will you commit to changing those regulations to address this class of offender, yes or no?
I will commit to ensure that those regulations, which focus as their most important objective on public safety, are appropriate to give the correctional service the authority to keep federally sentenced inmates in secure federal prisons to protect the public. That's a very important
appropriate. So it's appropriate that Paul Bernardo is in medium security, and you are fine with that. Minister, I will take it that you don't care that Paul Bernardo is in medium security. I will take it as that way because you're not prepared to act.